reviving. They send in communication settings and travels, direct location in your system, reviving yourself, revealing who you are, and evolving what you're coming into. There's so many lines of communication with settings, right? But you have to really understand how this all sets you free. This is you versus you. It's nothing else. You see, the more you focus on that and you realize it's just you fighting you, trying to understand the connection to your survivals or location in your system, is trying to understand you through your own settings, how you come into that adaptability. When you start processing what it is in position when you're seeing things, it's the believing cycles that you come into. So, what do you believe? Why do you want to believe in this? Why do you want to believe in that? Why I want to believe in me? I understand the truth of me. But it's how you see it. It's how about you understanding how you can change that and make it your own. Let me say it again. You change it and you make it your own. Because everybody's going to say something different about what it is. No, this is what belief means. Well, why are you saying that belief is only in one position, one perspective? Everybody has a different lines of perspective that they see themselves. We're in different colors, we're at different lights, different universe, different galaxies, different space, different time, different clocking. But we're all connected to each other. And that's what it is. We're all tethered to each other. We're all in that formation coming back to each other. Okay. Now that doesn't mean that you're going to see this person in a certain time frequency. That only comes in your set location when you understand more levels of you are reviving and revealing and evolving yourself. You and you and you. Me, myself, and I. It's me fighting myself and understanding I of me. Okay? Has nothing to do with anything else. This is the process of you trying to understand how you see things and how you connect to everything that you are in position of. Understanding the process all through light, right? It's not through anything of dark. Light and dark doesn't exist, but unless you want it to exist. If you want it to exist, how do you want it to exist? You have to change and set your position of its program. This is all about you understanding you, how to transit in position to resist into resistors and set locations to change that to your binary. To understand that, you change your capacity. Understand that, you take your mass and you take your volume. Understand that, you change your acceleration, you change your velocity. There's so many ways of looking at this. But it's you you're dealing with. Try to understand the mind. Is trying to understand the conception, how it comes in, shifts anywhere it wants to its reality, all at once. See, the body stays still. I'm here, but I'm everywhere. But what do you mean by that, General? Well, you see me how you want to see me, but I see everybody how they want to see themselves. So it's about understanding how everything is put in tractions and how everything is put in division to know exactly where the mind is always in that settings, existing all at once in its time frame, in its time zone. So it's all about understanding what the mind can do. It can shift anywhere it wants to be in its real time, in any way, in any position, in any form, at any time. Okay? This is what we all have to understand the process. That's how you see me, right? You see me all timelines all at once. That's what it is. I'm standing still, but the mind is everywhere. It's setting up this, it's setting up that, it's setting up here, it's setting up there, right? You're coming back into your memories, which you already know. Okay? You're not setting anything up until you understand you through how to revive yourself, how to reveal yourself, and how to evolve yourself. These are 3-track location lines: the mind, the heart, and the soul. The body in position sets the tone. Okay? Your body is nothing but a reaction, right? Yes, I'm here, but my mind is everywhere. That's all it is. So it's all about you understanding the shifting your reality, okay, and where you want to go through space and time. Right? You need space, you need time. That's the structure of you. You create the space, right? Not the actual space in position like to do, like remembers, because there's a lot of people trying to understand and not understanding that because they don't understand their system inside. They look at everything, but the one thing that you should be looking at is everything from inside you. Okay? You're a contrast. You're a position. You're a recyclological connection to all levels of its own identity, trying to understand itself through its own programming. Now, how are you going to understand anything through its programming if you focus on everybody else's programming? Doesn't make any sense, does it? Then you start to believe in this, then you start to see this, and then this person's reacting, and this person's reacting, and next thing you know, you have what they have. That's a program. That's being programmed. There's so many ways of looking at that through manipulation. Manipulates, modifies all location of your settings. Understand yourself through observation, understand yourself through attention, understand yourself through influence. You influence yourself to do that. You're allowing yourself to do that. So you're not understanding what you're seeing through perception because you don't understand how the mind controls its system. The mind controls everything in settings. It understands its hardware, understands its software, understands its mechanisms, understands its travel of what it's doing, right? So the body itself, okay, is everywhere, but it's not what you think it is. The body itself is a translucent, it's a pattern. It morphs into anything through its energy, vibration, frequency, harmonics. It can become anything in that formations because that's what you're telling your mind to do. The mind basically shifts its reality that changes the time. The actual heart sets the time reactor of where you want to go. And the position of the soul is basically the connections of its capacitors. So you put in your soul and the body capacitor. The soul and the body is one, but it becomes a capacitor of space and time through its time capacitor. And this is how it volumes you into quantum jumping, where basically you can take your body and can shift it to any of its reality, but you're still here. So you're just feeling all levels of the reaction all at once. So you can go through 27,000 million doors and still be here. But you did that already. So you morphed in so many line connections to its setting all at once, but you're still here. You're going through so many travels and operation line calculated settings, and the stargates, star portals, star command centers, but you're still here. That's all timelines all at once, right? That's the existence. That's the now. Okay. Processing this is understanding the map of you inside. Processing this is understanding you through remote or anything through recharge. Processing this is understanding you through communication. It's truly understand what you see through light of configuration. Okay? Light of configuration. See? Travel through watch. See the light? See that watch? What? You'll see a circle, right? See a circle? Now, you keep going back and forth. What is it creating? What is it creating? See the light? Going through, right? It's plasma. You can play with it, right? Look, you can play with it, right? It creates different shapes. It's like a balloon. It's like holding a light. And basically, it's heavy and it has a mass, and see, it's changing its shape line. Communications going. So it's really interesting. It's a bubble. It's plasma. It's liquid. It's formation. It's light. It can be anything it wants to be. It already knows what it is. Can you identify that, though, through travel? So understanding that is also its process. How to see yourself is all levels from inside connections. The way you look at yourself is everything from inside. It's just truly understanding how that works because the mind is already there. But it's the process of getting there is understand you. To understand you is understand where you are at all times, all at once. So you can platitude over here, 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 right? It's 4-line communication platforms, 24, 48, 72, 144. Where do you think that goes in setting? 24, 48, 72, 144. 24, 144, 72, 48. Doesn't matter. What matters is, do you understand where you're going? That's the purpose of its existence, to its identity. So you're identifying the mind and where the mind is going. So the body never leaves, right? Because the body's not there. You see what you want to see. Everybody sees what they want to see through their perception. That's their perspective, but that perspective turns it into its phenomenon. So you're changing your imagination, changing all lines of communication. That's putting you into visionary cortex lines of design. So the mind itself is traveling where it wants to go. Okay? And that's the process in that set of locations. Where the mind is already in that setting, it comes into its acceptance of where it already is. Right? That's its abundance. That's its frequencies. It's reached its frequencies. It matched its frequencies. And it matches everything through its body capacitor, time capacitor, space capacitor. Okay? So these things you have to look at and understand that through alpha, delta, and theta. Alpha grounds. Okay? Delta is heading to get there. Theta is your imagination. It's a box frame, mainframe, supposition travel lines. Directing line on how to come in that communication. There's all information of its intelligence, of its awareness. It's about you being aware how to revive, how to reveal, and how to evolve yourself. There's so many ways of looking at that, but the only way is to go within. Okay. Now we're at that level right now where everybody comes into higher calculations. The more they see through their alpha, the more they see through their delta, and the more see through their theta. They understand locations of their omega, right? Everybody comes in like calculation setting. Alpha, omega, micro, macro. Everybody's the same. Okay? That's what makes us equal. That's what makes us in time capacitor. That's what makes us in space capacitor. That's what makes us in all levels of high calculations. There's so many ways to looking at yourself, the capacity. So understanding the transistors and its resistors to its binary is understanding the light switches, how many times you basically go through the mind lines. You can go through 24,000 line doors and visualize location of seconds, minutes, and hours, positions of minutes over lines, square roots, square panels, square communication, square pi. Okay? It's so easy once you understand the adaptation of the mind and how it works. It's so easy if you understand the heart through time. It's so easy if you understand your soul through light. It's so easy if you understand your body through capacitor. And that's what we're all coming into. Your actual body is coming into space-time capacitor. Now, a capacitor is its capacity of its volume. That puts everything in mass, volume, velocity, acceleration, and Mach. E equals mc, right? We got in that position of the square. But the square root of u is coming out of the box, triangulation, coming in all lines of high center interference, taking everything out of calculations to its system. The team line is in the center operation of their center correlation setting attractions. Puts all levels of applications. So for example, in your position line centers is all location here set locations, how to see your center communications of your earth perceptions and how you come into that calculations. All right. Getting in direct signals into modifications. All right. So you have to understand the awareness of consciousness of the mind first. Let me say that again. You, okay, me, myself, and I, it doesn't matter how you reference yourself, because everything that you are saying to yourself. Let me say that again. Everything you're saying to yourself. One more time. Everything you're saying to yourself. It's how you're saying it to yourself. That changes everything from this, to your soul, to your body capacitor. Okay? All right, so Earth position of travel lines, point centers attraction. Okay? Point lines of attraction. Right? See that? See how powerful that is? It goes right through line connection. See? The light. See the corner line track location? Right? So the center position line centers changes pi and track line connections. 3 line provisions. Okay? Sets lines of 4 in position of 5, 6, 7, and 8 line connections. Center correlation sending attractions, indirect signal. Okay? Sets line circulation rotations in set location and setting. Puts position lines of 4 in position of 5 track location. Okay, all through set locations. Okay. Now you see how many times it's going through line connections of mind lines of travel, line connections to a system, waving lines, central lines of communication, right? So if you look really close, you can see the intelligence in set location right here. There's the intelligence. Okay, so the eye line. Set location, here's the eyebrow. Set location, here's the nose. Add location to the face and track locations. There's so many ways of looking at yourself and set connections. Directing lines of communication notes, position of its programs. Sets communications, notes lines, phase recognition, time sequence, all levels of set location. All right, so we got the phase recognition of the time sequence. Now it's all about understanding how to set position of scales, scaling the balance and how you travel line conditions. Let's go through 13 line screens. Modification lines, now we come to DX. Now DX is division lines, X lines, high calculation line system, omega. Gets more complicated, right? Omega line, communication line screen, high center interference, factors, over correlation setting, intra applications, high position of power, sets communication lines of pi, sets lines of over power again, sets communications over pi, intra-application high system, intra-calculation point system, all through 13 intra-applications and the DX lines equals lines omega. Okay? So inline rotation centers and track line condition setting, algorithm position of its program, as projections. Track position of point lines of tracks and 4 set lines, highest interference, interface position of graphs. Sets correlation setting of 45-degree angle and 3 lines of 4, 5, and 6, location of 7. Tracks communication lines. Foundation 1. F1 equals lines of navigation. Location of perceptions. F2. Sets lines calculation height and center interference into levels of set line condition setting. New graph calculation line screens. Combinating line conditions F4 and track line conditions height setting. Solar graph correlation setting attractions, high position all levels of center communication. Okay. So if you understand the communication of panels and locations just by reading line condition algorithm setting, that's a binary, right? 13 dx lines equals lines of O, location line condition setting. If I say it's O, I say it's O. If I say it's omega, I say it's omega. So in positional letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols can change anything through seconds, minutes, and hours, because it already knows what it's its intelligent location system. But are you aware of what you're looking at through perception of its image? That image itself really understands more levels of its own system, of its own operation, of its own existence. It understands its identity and understands why it's in its own purpose is for you to understand its involvement inside the location of you inside connections. Because that's what you're coming back to. Awareness and consciousness of everything. It's not in position at all levels of any calculations to imagination anymore. Okay, we're coming into so many lines of communication, not just the awareness of consciousness of you inside, but being aware of everything that you connect to of its system, from all calculations, to its resource and its source of its set location of its own self. Self-modulation, self-correlation, self-track calculation lines, high center interference, sectors, correlation lines, 2 panels, communication lines of 3 zeros, correlation setting and 3 track lines, sectors over quad, communication lines, settings and trial position lines of quadrants, set lines calculations into vector, sending communication line screen interference, and position programs, set case line calculations, setting set location. Very complicated stuff, right? So understanding you through line connection is really understanding you through all levels. How to centerline that communication is really understanding you through travel. The only way you can understand your travel is all mechanism locations of power. Power over the mind, mind over power. So as long as you understand the allocated lines set location, it's all about you understanding the psychology of your system, because you always have to keep reprogramming yourself if you allow yourself being programmed. There's so many lines of communication that has a default line screen. Sets lines inhibitors, sets calculation lines equals lines of higher self, line condition system, avatar, and position of sim and set design. H-line track, earth line communications. Sets lines in the hemisphere line screen, highest center interference, center correlation setting, location setting, infinity line communications. So we take the hemi-syncs into 2 track line centers, 2 provisions, 2 calculations, 2 line centers, and 2 line rotations. 2 panels of communications, screen lines, high setting. Sets lines, H-line rotation surface, track location lines, A-line settings, and set location to operation. Direct modification line, screen setting line connection system. So this is where basically you can take the Earth to higher levels of space line. You can take the position lines, you can put position line connections of planets below your Earth set locations. Okay, so Pluto is below its Earth now, the set location. It disappeared. Okay, it's below its Earth. These are the things that you can do once you understand how to retrack your binaries and read line connection setting to its program location of its computer of its voice. Sets communication lines of Pluto, sets location lines of Jupiter, sets location of Mercury, and sets position program line calculation setting to all lines of cerebral cortex line design and travel mechanism line connections power over pi and travel position line calculation setting, webbing line calculation setting in rotation surface and triangulation. In all set location. Okay. So, there's so many ways of looking at this, but as long as you understand there's only one way to look at this, inside perception. Okay? Inside perception, nothing else. Okay? Now, the reviving line, screen line, high center interference, and travel to its reveal is understanding to evolve. It's really understanding locations. You can basically put anything you want in position lines or track line. If the mind knows exactly where it is, and set location line center. Let's get a cloud line communications change. Changes cerebral cortex line design line. Wall interference position of cells lines, communication interference. Add the atom line rotation surface, triangulation line position program. Set a communication line screen, high interference of data. Process communication setting and travel position of point centers. And set location to its intelligence of high position. Hoo-ah! Face recognition. Okay, so it's really interesting how you really start to understand its set location of the now line, set location of real time, and track location line revision and infinity line rotations in one set location. Positions of panels, direct lines modification cycles, high correlation setting attraction. Okay, puts line calculation setting. Waving patterns, line position of 4 and of 5. Platforms communication of 1, 2, and 3. Okay, travel position line. And remember, this is all through the brain circuits in set location. Travel direct line signals, lines of high center interference, mechanisms over power, mechanisms over triangulation, mechanisms over calculations, mechanisms over pi. Site calculation high position is program. Pi directing line signals in line position locations in settings of film strips in line condition setting and travel in its position to its operation. Okay? Gets complicated, right? It's very complicated when you understand what it is in all track location, when you understand the mechanisms and the position of graphs. So, in line connecting high center interference platforms in 3 lines, 4 lines, 5 lines, 6, 7, 8 track locations. Okay? See? Say the cross line wins 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 line communication. Okay? Setting track lines of communication, 1 line center in position. Sets correlation setting to the Earth line communication in setting. 4 planets below the Earth line rotation and travel in 4 line rotation surface. Okay, 4 planet screen settings and travels. Point lines attractions. Direct modifications of 2 lines, 3 lines of 4 track location. Okay, very complicated stuff. Okay, but if you look really, really close, you can see there's 3 there. 1 disappeared. Okay, there was 4 planets, now there's only 3. It's gone, right? So it's amazing when you understand how to go to the mechanism line conditions of travel settings and opposition of point centers. It's all about movements, lines of screen lines, high adaptation, mind over matter, puts all position of flow. That flow is lines of communication. Let's go into 15 lines of channels, 15 lines in position of calls, and calculation lines to high center interference, blocking systems, pattern lines, 3 line rotation surface, pattern communications in line communication, sets lines of calculation of point lines of graphs, center lines, center communication, center interference. Okay, data processing, box line rotation service, angle points and set location of 3 lines of communication and measure, positions of our power, triangulate line rotation centers and crop circles. Crop circles set position line calculation setting. So got 15 line settings of calls, sets lines of communication of 15 lines of perimeters and 15 lines of platforms and set locations. Position lines attractions opens all signals. Now we add the line connections to all signals and line communication system and travel position of point centers. Puts lines attractions in 1 line communication. Okay, 1 location grid is center communication. Okay, center lines back towards line communication of travels and line conditions. Modificates line centers high center interference and travel position is operation surface and set locations. Travel lines, down line centers, line rotation surface, triangulation, high position of point centers, and track location. Very complicated stuff at set locations, right? So extremely advanced in all line condition settings. You can change the 15 graph line screens into 25 screen line center locations, but you're working with the seconds, minutes, and hours now. The set communication interference puts position lines as centers and travel communication to its point system. All of it is a high calculation of its point center. All right. So the more mechanism line conditions of power puts position your crop circle line screens. Now the correlation setting track line has the center communication of point systems, all right? The calculation lines of the team is here in center. Okay, here in center right now. That's where the team is. Species here and set location, right? Center correlation grounds, center lines of transition, and just location of tracks. Okay. Now, understanding that through platform is understanding your line settings in a 3 line, 4 line, 5 line location. Puts position of track lines communication to its program. Okay, it's position of timelines. Lacing line in 3 lines in a 4 track location. Puts position lines XT1000, 2 platitude line screens. Tracks modification lines, cross line signals in position to its location center and center calculations. Point line division Energetic dome screens sets lines of communication as position. Program setting high interference, electrical line grids sets lines of communication security line defense, right? Center correlations of platforms and crop circles as that design, okay? Astral projections, right? So every time an astral projection comes in, it line signals its modification screen lines adaptation. Center correlation setting in crop circles, how it changes all communication to its system of teleportation of lights at screen locations. See? Platforms over line setting. So we come into levels of cerebral cortex line design. This rainbow graph line, screen line high interference that puts position of panels in a higher line communication setting and track location of face recognition. Okay? So that's what it is. You dealing with you and all line signals. So in that correlation setting attractions and all position to its operation system, the team has to come into the line set locations out of structure of design. Now they got applied to the screen interference, how to use the seconds over line screen in position location of timeline center. This puts optical line screen interference at times of pi. This positions the track location of face recognition of time sequence. So line positioning is your box line rotation centers. Okay, 4 clock location centers of travels. 4 lines of tracks and 3 line communication, right? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 line communication screens, right? Sets position of box, sets position of box, sets position of box into 3 triangulation. Point lines of tracks, face recognition of time sequence, and center communications. Point lines of setting high center. Okay. Mechanism over power puts position lines of calculations, putting lines of track location line systems back in traction. Face recognition of time sequence. So you take the 1, 2, 3 in position of 4. So 1 line signals, downshift, cross line. 2 line signals goes up line communications. Sets communication lines of 3. Sets communication. Now this is all singularity. Now in line calculation settings, really understand how to use binary settings. This location BINARY. Okay. Binary. All right. Center correlation setting attraction. Center line communication setting. All levels of the operation center location system. Energetic domes. Pattern communications. All levels of communication platforms. Line signals. 45-degree angle. Line rotation surface. Force line communication setting. Travel position. Point lines attractions. In calculation of its point system. Okay. Very complicated. Now, this is through a 1, 2, 3, 4 and graph through binary. Mechanism line calculation of travel, the line position of its point system of travel communication and settings. See the face recognition location? So I want you to understand, okay, Friday, you guys have a test. I want you to see a face recognition of everything that you do. Face recognition of everything that you do, okay? So you need face recognition because it point lines it tracks, graph calculation screen interference, protection all lines, especially when you come into remote. Central line communication line settings, setting track lines, set locations, setting track lines, set locations, in position line centers, right? So it's going at a certain line communications going up, going down, this way line setting, going this way locations, going this line divisions, power communication streams, both track location line settings and location. Now, understanding that is all levels of all track locations in your I division. Sending line communications to its position of its program. Platforms communication lines as center operation. Very complicated stuff, right? So your actual eyes are a capsule. It capsules lines, it capsulates, catapults, and lines center location it travels. Directs modification lines and wormholes and stargates and star portals in position line calculation setting into all communications in position line traction. So your eyes itself are capsules. Okay. Capsulated. Capsules of design and line connections. That's all they do in travel. Spinning cycles, high platforms, high travels, high position point centers of graphs. All through docking. Docking lines, communication settings of platforms of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 line provision of cycles. Okay? Okay. So getting into that position line centers, this capsulates, catapults, and coordinates. Try a combination of point centers of graph calculations. Point line division, Center correlation setting to track lines of infinity is line screen settings. Modification lines circulate and rotate. Travel position lines of point centers of travels into capsules of design is center communications. Okay, coloring it all in black. So it's all about understanding the classics into physics 101, quantum 101, astrology 101, line setting, hyperset, travel communication, point lines of graphs, intermetric meters, scales, position of balance over pi. Over pi is everything in position of power over line screen, puts position lines as center and communication of point systems. Now, directing that through modification lines is all levels of U in track location of yin and yang. Process your position line centers, how to use the communication setting in position of travels in point lines of track location. Okay. So it's all about, you can be in two different places, but you're connected to each other. Okay, that's where you start off with the yin and yang process. Understanding the white is understanding the dark. Understanding the dark is understanding the white. And you realize it's just light. So light is light. It has no significance. It just has an existence of its own system. So understanding the existence is its identity of its purpose. And then you really understand the process when it comes into all communication, its program, and all lines of the communication system, and all of its awareness, and all track line condition setting to its reviving system, of its revealing system, of its evolving system, a track location line condition to its point center. Okay? Intelligence. It's always, always intelligence. So that's where you guys have to come into frame lines and set locations. I just pressed the button in line and changed it line communication to this setting automatically. Boom. Just press that and it clicked it to another station, right? Center correlation setting attractions. It's really interesting where you just do this and it changes. Modifications of high interference of travel position, modification screen interference location of travel lines. So putting your position of travels really directs your signal location system, how you use your allocated line screens. So you have to be very careful with your finger point line screens. You have point lines of attractions, 3 lines of measures, 4 line positions. So you get the triangulation lines of molecule design line and 3 line rotation centers. Puts these lines of 6, 7, and 8 and 9 line setting into 0 correlation setting of flywheel and track location. Okay, so I'm just showing you exactly what you guys can do at a higher level now through geometrics, geometry, settings, and geological system through your avatar now, because you're in your avatar, your cerebral cortex. So there's a lot more confusion. Coming in energetic dome screens, right? There's some modifications to the settings, but you're always in information. So all line communication setting, all track location to its intelligence. See the intelligence? I add the equation line center. I add the other 9 line center locations into 3. You have to add number line sequence, like connecting the dots, coloration patterns. There's the intellications. There's the intelligence. Boom, right? So that's what you guys have to come into modification of face recognition time sequence. The more you identify your self-identities, your purpose, and your existence, you really stand your face is traveling very fast. Sets correlation setting of track lines in a 4 line rotation center. Okay, face recognition, face recognition, face recognition, face recognition. 4 different line communication of face recognitions. Happy, sad, confused, angry. Happy, sad, confused, angry. 4 line communications, right? So you can't be happy, you can't be sad in any way and form. You got to be in the same travel position lines of face recognition of time sequence. Timeline centers in all face recognition of the same sequence, same frequency, same communication, and same position program as allocations. So you guys have to really get balanced with your location settings now. Okay, off through pi. Generations of pi, correlations of pi, time sectors of pi. This is going to get you a better aligned communication setting to understand to see yourself. So it's you standing in the center and you're changing your face at so many line frequencies, all at seconds, minutes, and hours. So let's say you went through 24,000 face recognitions in a 3-track location. 24,000 face recognitions in 1 second. 1 second, people. Not a minute, not an hour. That's 24,000 faces that you platitude your divisions into your cerebral cortex lines of design. Platforms of communication setting a 4-track line provision. Sets communication line settings of highest interference, time link, time jump, time vortex, and set location. Traffic calculation on point lines of tracks, orb line channels, highest interference, and travel position lines of 3 settings. Travel communication of point lines of 3 set locations. Travel communication lines of 24,000 signature line screens of location operation lines that are signification of data. Process all communications with setting and travel communications. All right. Now that's through 24,000 face recognitions. Now, when you get those 24,000 face recognitions, you platitude that division location with Earth habitation zones. 1 position of 2 and 3 line connections, right? So time measure, point lines attractions into transits. Okay, and set locations, right? Time zone 1, time zone 2, 3, and position of 4 in set location. Travel calculation of point lines attraction. Okay, so the cerebral is here in line connecting. It's positioned to its center of all operations surface and travel calculations. Okay, point lines of settings, pi calculation of point lines attraction. Okay, sets up all communication lines. Now the sun comes in line calculating setting in position of process. It illuminates the ground calculation line center to its moon and operation surface that retriangulates the position of its program at 3 communication settings in adaptation of its application. Very complicated stuff, right? Remember, this is higher levels. It's the avatar of the cerebro now. Your geometrics are changing, your geological system, your graphing system, your mapping sequence. Your dimensional lines of space are now in position of capacitor. You're in space-time of capacitor and set locations. Congratulations, team. So understanding the body capacitor is really understanding your location, your travel settings, and all calculation to its mechanism. Okay. So there's so many ways of traveling through that, through seconds, minutes, and hours, through face recognition. Okay. So that's what you are. You're in the center operation of face lines, communication streamlines. Now, the avatar itself understands the atmospheres and its application to its atom. Let's atom line rotation of 2-point centers attractions and molecule design lines and 3-line rotations. 2 atom lines, 2 atom attractions, and 2 line divisions. 3 atom communication lines equals lines of molecule design line conditions. Very complicated, right? So it's an 8-track line division and center correlations and interaction. It's getting more complicated, right? So it's really interesting when you really, really understand your travel and location setting. Okay, it's very complicated, right? The drawings get more complicated and a lot more confusing because the line connection you're setting is changing line connections. It's directing modification lines of square roots, square meters, square pi, and track location. Okay, directing modification lines and line connection to its position of its program. Okay, but everything aligns its communication inside calculation setting. Kaleidoscope, line connection of travels, and mechanism line settings puts all levels of operational location in the cerebral and cortex and line design is application. Okay, so getting into modification is really understand how to use yourself and really understand the balance, really understand the calculations, your algorithms. You got your letters now, you got your shapes, and you got your symbols. Okay, letters, set location of shapes, and you got your symbols, and you got calculations of your numbers. All right. So you have to understand the position of 3 lines of L, and you have to understand L lines of 3. Okay, that's what I want you guys to get into. So the test is based on everything that you draw is provision of a face. Okay, let me say that again. You have to get in a position of a face now because it's about understanding what you're protecting is yourself. Okay, this is higher levels of the mind, but the capacity is higher levels of volume, of mass, and an equation. So understanding how to direct and redirect through letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. So you have to go from binary to retraction to binary. So you understand that you have the balance, you understand the steps that you're going in position, its location, its system, and travel. Okay, going through alpha line, it's communication lines into delta, into theta box location. Okay, alpha, delta, theta. Right? Theta opens up, box line, frame line communications, data frame, position of 3-track locations. It says communication. Remember, this is all calculated and modified in the cerebral location line calculations, so memory. Track location line settings, highest center line conditions. All levels of frequency panels and line communication setting. All track location line conditions, all levels of its measure position. Right? So once you understand how to use the letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols to go back and forth, you come into higher line calculation setting acceleration. So you can basically come in a high volume through a tone line setting, but it's the body that sets up the tone, right? So the body is reacting to everything that you do, right? So getting, transmitting, receiving information, They say, okay, I got a box line rotation centers. I got 45,000 measure correlation setting to track lines. I got aligned provision lines of box lines, frame communication settings, energetic dome screen line connection setting, and face recognition. That's what you received, right? Now, so the face itself that comes to you through data is the process of you through identity. There's a reason why you guys get track provisions. Now, track provision is really to understand the tracking line conditions where it has its own calculations. To understand your tracking devices, understand your tracking number, right? So coming in line calculation lines of xt equals lines of d, x lines into one line, 1/2 lines into eighth equals lines of calculation lines of eighth equal location line centers of box and triangulation. Point center lines of x line, calculation line interference into star line centers of 4 positions of track lines of 5 settings. Job position lines of calculation line interference, point lines of tractions, center correlation setting to track position of point lines of tracks, high calculation line centers of 3 track locations. Now it gets more complicated because the formulas get more complicated. Okay, because now you're working with delta. Okay, and you're working with a 2-line screen. Anything in 2-line that never changes. You know its position of travel line that comes to high center interference into Pluto. Pluto sets the line communication setting and repeats its cycles over and over and over until you understand the communication setting and track location. Okay? So once you look at all communications, then you understand the dot opposite view. You know, the position line calculation setting is really understanding that we all have a common 2 screen that sets lines of communication, high center interference, each line track. Point line divisions, calculation of mapping sequence, location lines of 6. So sets position of 1 in position of 2, and 3 in position of 4, 4 in position of 5, and 5 position of 6. Sets correlation setting and track locations, solar generation screen lines, adaptation line service, and solar sail as application. All through H. All through hemisync. So I say what it is, right? So your program is always constantly changing. It's never in the same form. It's always in position. Now it's a rectangle. So it changes its platform, changes its platform, changes its platform. Okay? That's all it is. So once you understand that, the correlation setting track lines, but be careful with the numbers because you can come in communication lines of frequency position of programs, sets lines at 3 track line connection setting dash projections. Panel communications of 2 settings, space and time. Okay? So the panels are space and time. You have to understand the port of communication to the left, port of communication to the right, center communication of grounds, and set position of ceilings and track location line system of block location. Okay? You're always dealing with that. Okay? The 24, 48, 72, 144. All right? So once you get into formulas, it gets more fun now because it's center lines as communication setting as attractions. So you can add the DX line settings, equals lines correlation settings in 1. So in position locations, if it doesn't make any sense to you, you have to understand and ask yourself why it doesn't make any sense. It's because you're not understanding how to travel through the 1, don't understand the equals, don't understand the X, don't understand the D, don't understand the brackets, don't understand the 3 zeros and the track locations of binaries and bracket communication line centers or center communication. So everything travels. Everything has to travel. So understanding the travel is understanding the cycles and the circles and rotation center and circulation line connection setting of the circulatory line connections. So everything comes in sync with its all set location of its formulas of its equation. Now it's getting more complicated because you have to understand the avatar of its cerebral because it's going to higher levels of its mapping sequence to get into the sim. The center operation of U is already set to its system location of its universe location of its realm setting. That puts you in all modifications into your set location, a higher fast track location of your memories and cortex of design. So formulas can get very, very confusing in set locations. So many lines of travels. How you direct your signals and modification line screens. As long as it makes sense to you, it doesn't matter what anybody else says instructions, because you know how to travel through it in set location. 2 operations, 2 bracket line calculations, setting box lines and flux capacitors communication lines, equal line communication line setting, face recognition, time sequence lines of box, line condition height, center interference, box lines, triangulation line position program. Right? I already know what it is in face recognition. All right? So if you understand what that means, then the memory is already set. The chronological line condition of its frequencies is already in set location of its alpha, understands its delta, understands its theta, understands its omega. So it doesn't matter. You can have position lines of beta here. You can have beta in space. But remember, you're working with false and truth. False and truth. So be very careful how you use beta in space. Tether through false narratives. You got to know. So you turn that in anything information line screen because it becomes your own compute screen interference, your own binary communication, your own program. Setting position lines at all levels, coding, decoding, sets calculation line interference into encoding, right? Well, where's the D? Where's the E? I don't need that. It's already set. It's already done, right? So calculations of coding into decoding into encoding, CDE, right? So we all have to understand how we get into our own set location, our own settings of travel. To understand our position to its program and our set location system sets us free in a 3-track line provision, okay, in a 4-box location. 3-track provision of 4 box. Equals lines, up, swing, downswing, cross locations, 4 lines, streamlines, highest interference, and travel position of the program. Okay. Set of correlations set into track lines, flywheel track location, its energy dome. Okay. Set of correlations set into track lines and highest interference. Seconds, minutes, and hours changes everything. And you're constantly on a screen. So you're never ever slowing down. The only time you slow down is when you're changing pi, when you're changing traction, when you change the letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols on you. But you can't add emotional light track lines in your system in set locations. Not at that speed through all calculations. Point lines of graphs, face recognition. Always have a face recognition. Okay? So the sentience or locations won't be able to come in. Because you're identifying yourself. So what you're doing is you're structuring your image so nobody can basically drain that line screen, high center interference, and position of its program location and graph calculations. That's why it's important to have face recognition, platitude, and everywhere in set locations, all levels, multi-through screen interference, all calculations, all timelines all at once. Right? So platitude line screen, setting correlates setting to track lines on highest interference. Let's go in position lines centers, graph communication setting. Okay? So that's communication upon. There's a pawn here, right? There's a pawn here. And there's a pawn here in set locations. Right? So what you're doing, and you got the rooks, right? At the end. Right? And you got the bishops here. See, I play chess, but you are the chess, you are the strategy. Right? So it's all about configuration to basically get to the other side and basically change the strategy and location setting, right? Not calculation line centers. There's the king and set locations. Checkmate. Okay. So it's all about understanding how to play chess. Okay. Understanding the strategy of you through platform. Understanding you, the correlation setting to travel. Understanding your position locations and where you're going through your settings and set locations. Understanding how to map up your sequence locations already because it's set in this design. You're coming in your memory to higher line communications now because you're your avatar and the cerebral cortex lines it's designed faster now, all through data. It's input and it's output. So you're working with in, you're working with out, and you're working with audio. Right? See, that alone is an illusion because you don't see the in, you don't see the out, you don't see the audio. I see what it is. You see it as 3 ones. That's how I'm able to protect my system. Okay? So you see the confusion there? Because you see it 3 ones. And how can you say this is in? How can you say this is out and this is audio? How can you say that? Well, I just did. But you see it as 3 ones. Right? So you're always, always, always in a different line of communication. Every second, every minute, every hour is changing the graph calculation algorithms of letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, which you are protecting yourself in all communications of face recognition. Okay? All right. So that's what you guys all have to come into. To understand your calculation, your binaries, and know exactly how you're setting yourself through your own capacities and your own volume of mass. You get into that position to its location, to its settings. You come into that location system of your own formula and your own equation set locations, right? So in set position, this is an all-line condition setting. This is a 6-line position of travel. This is a 6-line position of travel. You see 2. How is this a 6-line position of travel if I see 2? You see 2. No, I see everything of a 2, right? I see everything of a 6. So it's protecting my system, thinking that's what you think that's what this is, but it's not. It's a 6-line division location operation cycle. Now it's a 2-line track location. Now it's a 4 communication interference. Now it's an 8-line calculation affinity, but you see it as a 2, right? So you're never able to catch up to that in any way and form because your algorithm is constantly changing. So this is a process that everybody has to come into, right? To know that exactly what it is in traffication. You see this as a 1, right? I see this as a 0 ground communication interference, but you see it as a 1. You see how I'm protecting my system, right? Nobody can take that away from you. You guys are coming into all levels of your own set location and home programming. Okay? Try to figure that one out. Getting your position line centers in 1-line communication setting. Just because it's 1 doesn't mean it's 1. It's not 1. You just think it's 1 because that's all you see. See? You got to go beyond the mind. Get out of those box frequencies, position panel lines, and travel calculation of point line centers, high interference, high positions program. Now it's a graph. But you see it as 1, but it's not a graph, is it? It's something else now because I changed it, right? So always be 5, 10, 15, 20 steps ahead of everyone. That's what you want to do. You want to be 25,000 feet ahead of everyone. So remember that 5 steps back, 4 steps forward, 4 steps back, 5 steps forward, 3 steps back, 6 steps forward, right? It's all set location of patterns, right? So you're always ahead of the game. Always. 3-track location line setting, height interference. So there's so many ways of looking at it in position locations. You see this as 23, right? But that's not 23, right? Because now it's 62. You see it as 23, I see it as 62, right? But I added 2-line signal, 2 equals lines of GOD. GOD equals lines of 6. So I turn it into 6. 3 communication lines of this GOD. GOD in line condition setting equals lines of 2. 62. You see it as 23. So I'm already ahead of the game. So this is about understanding the emotional system line conditions doesn't have any time to slow down interactions or anything in that formations. All right? That's what you got to get balanced with now, right? Because you're in the avatar. So the cerebral is going faster now. You say the location line system and track location line system and travels. Point lines of tracks, high standard location of scales, right? You see this as an M. This is not an M, right? So do you understand what I mean, though? You're always going ahead. You're always in set locations. You're always in the now. The existence is in set location to settings. See, what is this? Everybody sees it an M. But see, you had limited information, right? It's not an M, right? It's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, it's a 5-track line condition setting into sectors, vectors, and quads, because that's what I say it is, right? It's a 5, right? So you're always moving forward. You're always too fast. The metric meters, the scales balance, sets, lines, communication setting. So in track location, high position, you're always in that track locations. So you're always going faster than all calculation of its clocking because you're already there. Center correlation setting, you see it as M. It's 5 lines, high center interference, and sectors, vectors, and quads. Okay? See, it's about understanding how to travel through it, guys. And you have to get into your singularities first, your binaries, to get into your patterns into all levels of your set location system that gets you in a high calculation of its program, especially when you come to your algorithms. Really understanding the binary of its computer, of its memory, how to turn on a computer. Everybody understands that, right? You turn on a computer, what happens next? Well, you are the position of its setting that sets all communication in your system because it's already done. So again, in position location, this looks like a 4, right? But it's not a 4, right? So its position of it's a 2-track line connections, 2-track line connection. But you see it as a 4, right? See, I had 2 line centers, but I didn't add a 3-line communications, right? Then I add a 3-line communication triangulation of a point center. Mapping sequence line condition of 0 gravity and crop circle location of design. So you tell me, how's that a 4? So I'm constantly moving forward. So every time I put something down, I'm already there ahead of something else. So I've already changed the setting line of its 4. Now the 2 is now a 5. okay, and set locations, right? Now the 5 is a box, okay? Now the box is a star line sequence, calculation high interference. Now it's a platitude location sent into a rectangle square line and data stream location of setting, right? Too fast, too fast, too fast, too fast, too fast. So you can't catch up because I'm always changing. Metric scales and balance position your algorithm really changes the binary cortex lines of its design, but you have to balance out the resistors, not the transistors. It's the resistance of you. You can't have any resistance on anything you do through travel, especially when you get into line communications through behavioral location settings or travel communications, right? So it's really understanding line heist interference. If I set position line connection system, you guys see this as a tree. It's not a tree, but you see it as a tree, right? Set line communication line interference never is a tree. It's a holographic of its own image, of its own set line connection settings, what it is in all volume and line rotation center and track location high position of its operation system. That's what it is. It's not a dimensional tree line. Okay. So you're always, always, always ahead of all calculation of your settings in your programming. You're running line communication setting in all set locations. Your binary is really changing the volume. That's resetting everything through its program. That's changing everything through letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. So you're changing the traffic, changing the flow, you're changing the mechanism, you're changing the inventory, you're changing the structure, you're changing the design, you're changing the coloration, you're changing the light, you're changing the face recognition of space and time through correlation calculation of time clocking, line communication of its program, line calculation of its formation, direct line modification cycles, high generation discriminant interference, in all communication setting positional point center location of attraction. All through division. Okay? So that's what you have to understand, is to keep yourself not going forward, but always in position locations. You're always there going forward. So it's not thinking that I am forward, not thinking I'm doing forward, not thinking I'm going forward. I'm already there. So I'm constantly understanding the platforms, how to use the letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols in a faster track locations. How do you see this? Like, it's just, that's not an L. You just think it's an L, right? This is a 3-track location. Right? 3-track location. You see as an L, right? So I'm way ahead of everything. Just trying to get you guys to understand how this all works. How platitudes line screens, how fast it goes, and in the mind line, because the mind is going too fast in travel position of its program, all levels of the operation system, alpha, delta, theta, and all communication. Right? So it's constantly moving, changing, color lights, travels, base recognition, time sequence, time spy, algorithm settings, binary resets position programs, default line communications, correlation settings, enabled, copy, paste. It's all communication of settings. It's just constantly flow, right? So you go just going way too fast in track locations, right? All right, so once you get a better design, how to really get into the relationship and partnership, you come into energy correlation of its face recognition, of its intelligence. So you see one line signal, line connection size interference. That's one, right? But the one's already traveled to 12 different designs. Through its seconds, through its minutes, and through its hours, guys, right? So it never stays its same location or frequency. One is now position of 2. So 2-track location, 2 equals lines of 3. Okay, 3 lines, communication of 5. 5 back to 1, right? 1 back to 6. Oh, 6 back to 8. Oh, 8 to 12. Oh, 8 to 12,000. Its allocations, right? So it can do whatever it wants in setting, but all it's doing is creating a solar sail and track location setting in position line centers of face recognition. Okay? So everybody understand the process now? How this all works and what you're trying to do now through the avatar of the cerebral? Gets a lot more understandable of understanding to be understood. How to really get into that position locations, right? So everything that I draw through an image is now changed. It changes space, it changes time, it changes pattern, it changes correlation, it changes lights, it changes algorithm, it changes colors, it changes all levels of its formation of its awareness of consciousness. Right? So stop seeing things as this and start to see this in set position. Okay? This is this. That's going ahead, right? That's 3-track line connections, settings, and travels. Okay? You see it as one. I see it as a 3-track location on lines. So, really get into that position because your crop circles are trying to understand more through identifications, how to use that through platforms or any of the set location lines and settings and travel communication system. All levels of energetic dome screens and set location. Okay? But you really have to start identifying yourself now. So the test is based on creating face recognitions in your settings. Okay? And it's got to be natural. It's kind of like when you're drawing a picture. You don't need to draw the picture because it's already in the mind. This is the process that we have to get under control. Okay, to really understand the mechanisms that you're doing through travel communication to its point system or anything calculation of XT lines and the location of settings and set locations. All right? Get things under control. Okay, how you see letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols now. Because it's all identification of its purpose and its existence of its face recognition. Okay? Now, I could be doing this all day. It's truly understanding a certain line of communications in set position. So if it's 44, I could keep it at 44, or I can change it to something else. I could change the nominal lines. It could be -4. Set positions to 4 lines into 40. Add position of 1 in set locations, 40.1, right? Sets location line settings, 4 drops in set location, 3-track locations. See what you can do with 44. So you got to learn how to travel through it. And the way to do that is understand its own plasmazing wall. It has a correlation and attraction, has in its inference, has its classification system, has its 24, 48, 72, and 144 platforms, has center communication setting and travels. So you're always working with that. You are always in the center. Okay? You're always in the center communications, right? So you can travel here, 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 and here. Okay? Everybody showed you line connection setting. Portal communication left, portal communications right, portal communications grounds, portal communication lines of center, and set location of space anomaly and track location. Okay? You're always going through that. So if you're going through northwest, south, and east, so are letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, everything you see through perception. Right? So it's just like asking yourself in all track location lines, I'm wearing a hoodie, right? Okay? You see it as white. I see it as green. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. See, you can't program somebody if somebody's already in a set location, is already in travel, because they already know what they're doing in their mind. So if you know what you're doing in your mind, it's not green, it's blue now. But you still see it as white. Falling behind, right? So now it's a rainbow, but you see it as white. I don't see it through white, I see it through all colors. White is never a color, it's all color. But what color is it? Want it be? See, that's about understanding where you are in frequency. That's about understanding where you are in your energy. That's where you are in your harmonics. That's where you are in your vibration, right? But you see it as white. I see it as black. I see it as black and white now, but back and forth. But you still see it as white, right? So we all have to understand what that means now when it comes in your system location of travels, and I can change your settings. 24, 48, 72, 144. Or 144, 24, 48, 72. Doesn't matter. What matters is that you're traveling through the mind, the consistent lines of time frame, flux capacitor. You need a flux capacitor that travels at system location and settings, setting correlations, setting your track lines, your past, present, and your future. Okay? 3 forks of design. Past, present, future. Okay? Boom. Now you understand what your hand is? You notice why you only see 3, you don't see 4 or 5? Because it's a center operation of U, center correlation, track location settings. So you're always dealing with that, all line settings, all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. So whatever you travel through is provision lines of seconds, minutes, and hours of travel communications. So that's what you have to get into information of in Psycho, especially with the avatar, because the cerebral is changing timelines. It's changing your formula. It's changing your equations. It's changing your data streams. It's changing your Omni highways. It's changing all lines into your reviving, revealing, and your evolution. of your system and set locations. Okay? It's how you see through perception. Okay? So by location line centers, you see this as a 5. It's not a 5. You see it as a 5, right? Okay? It's 5 generations equals lines of 2 operation line cycles, high position of patterns, box line, triangulation line conditions at all levels, affinity line screen, high center interference, percentage over correlation setting, 100%, and trial position lines of compute screen interference, and trial positional point centers of travels, 4 graph calculation of screen lines, and set position as operation surface and travel communication. This is not that. That's what this is. Okay? As long as you understand you're traveling, the mind is traveling through the letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, you're good to go because everything is travel. Okay? So if you don't understand the conception of the mind, you're not traveling through its relationship or its partnership. And the biggest thing for you to understand is the power of its mind, is its mind over power. Putting that position over power, over time, over specification is to understand how to use that in set locations. Knowing how to use the positive and negative in all calculation line settings to what you are in representation. If somebody says it's a positive, are you going to agree with them or are you going to change that? Because now you're in influence of them. Okay? So basically you just change your program because you are in that setting now. You're in that adaptations. You start believing that cycle. So what that does do to your setting? What does that do to your binary? What does that do to your voice? What does that do to your space and time of your intelligence? Right? So that's what you have to understand, is to balance that out. Right? Balance something that's out of control so you can get it back in control. Right? To really understand that. You can't travel through emotional line connections. The mind itself is already there. 0 position, trial calculations. Right? That's the mind, and you're here. Right? So you go here, oh no, back here, no, I'm good, no, back here, oh yeah, I crossed over, no, that's not working. No, back here. See, you can't get to here because you're adding emotion. Don't add emotion. Don't add emotion, you're there. It's that simple. Right? So it doesn't matter what you do, as long as it makes sense to you. As long as you see it through its image, you're good to go. It has nothing to do with anybody else what they say. You can't tell somebody that you're in a position to all line condition setting. They have a program, so do you. So you have to understand how to get into the psychological settings and really understand your system to its locations. The most powerful thing is not just the mind conception of travel, but everything around you is already in that position of its calculation of its operation. So what that means in its equation is really understand how to use that in its volume of its mass. Okay, through acceleration. You really have to understand what the mind is and what it's doing through its letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. Okay? Because you're never, ever slowing down until you understand how to slow down, right? Slowing down is line condition of 0 line, position of all levels of binary line, and 3-track location line provision. So, setting correlations, setting attractions. You never turn off your lights in any way and form, right? So it's kind of like your computer's always on. Okay, your computer is never, ever off. Right? That's the difference. That's the difference. See, there's a reason why you go into recharge. There's a reason why you go into remote. Okay, in the conception location, you have to turn your computer off, right? Okay, that's where it's in its reality. That's where it's in its frequency. But with you, you're in all realities, all frequencies, all at once. All dimensions, all computers, all space and time. It's locations. So you can do whatever you want. It makes sense to you. That's all that matters. If it doesn't make any sense to them, it doesn't matter. Because you see it how you see it through its image. You see it through its travel. They don't see it because they don't identify who they are. So if you don't identify who you are, you're not reviving, you're not revealing, and you're not evoluting yourself. You're not evolving yourself. You're not understanding yourself. You're not going within. And it's about understanding when you go within, you start connecting. And you start connecting, you see through perception. And when you see through perception, you just start to see everything inside of you. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I put up. All right, because I know it makes sense to me. It makes sense to general, right? That's what this is all about. It's you versus you. You versus you. Nothing else. So once you understand the mind conception, everything that you see through perception, you understand everything has its own eye-line setting, has its own intelligence, has its own operation, has its own awareness, has its own consciousness. Everything is its own system, its own set of locations that you've got to get balanced. But you got to get balanced yourself first to understand you. How to understand your lines, your energies, your vibration, your frequencies, and your calculations, your harmonics, right? Everything is traveling extremely fast now. So you have to be aware of what you're looking at because it changes the algorithm, changes coloration, changes light, changes travel, changes space, changes time, changes clockings, and everything you see through perception. You're never ever going to see it at the same frequency, right? Because it's in a different dimension of space. You know why? Because of you. Because of you. Because you change your energy. Every time you change your vibration, it changes everything around you. So you're connected to everything, and everything's connected to you, right? So you are the volume of all face recognition, all timeline sequence, all calculations to its position, all levels of operation. So in that position, when you're picking things up and putting it down, it's at a different frequency. It's at a different intelligence, different communication, different tether, right? So as soon as they put it down and I pick it up, it's at a different frequency, right? But I got it back in balance, right? So if I change my frequency, if I change my energy in any way and form, it changes the platform of its intelligence. So that's what you're telling yourself to do, right? So in that position line condition, it's its own intelligence of its own frame, of its own geometric of its own system, which is extremely powerful. But as soon as I add the equation, I'm communicating with its intelligence, of its operation, of its space. I have to identify myself. It has to identify itself first, right? That's where it comes in energy collaboration into communications. You are directing yourself. You're putting yourself in line of communications. You're connecting with its intelligence of its space and time, of its own operation, of its awareness, of consciousness. So once you put your position of finger here, line condition setting on its graphical board screen in interference, you've got relationship and partnership. Now, once you understand that, you control the space, right? You control the time. You control the clocking of its graph calculation lines of its intelligence because you already have partnership. Now, if you have partnership with its energy, its vibration, its frequencies, you got the matching sequence, right? So it's kind of like you have mojo. You understand the mojo of you. So it's all levels of balance. You know exactly what you're doing in communication line system. It doesn't matter in line communication setting, but it makes all sense to me because I know what I'm doing through travel communication as point center interference, and graph communication setting, and travel communication of point line center interference, and travel position location to its operation of face recognition. Okay. So it's really understanding how to understand its position location. Intelligence, right? So it really doesn't matter what you do. I say, what is that? It's an abstract, right? This is an abstract. See, it's no thinking. I'm just doing whatever, right? See, this is what it is. It's a formation screen line. I know what it is because it's in the lines of high set location, what it is in its settings of its reality, its locations. Doesn't look like much to you, but I travel through it. Now, if I travel through it of its intelligence, you can see the eye lines. There's the eye lines. You draw things without even thinking about it. There's the intelligence. Oh. Okay. Now, what is the intelligence of? Is it intelligence of its own system or is it intelligence of you? Right. This is about understanding you identifying yourself in your own space of travel, your two panels. Remember, guys, you are on your box frame, mainframes. You're coming out of that. You're coming into your own face recognition. Setting that position of travel lines at point lines attractions, right? Point lines of graphs. So every time I change the point lines of graphs, it changes the measures, changes the scales, changes the balance of you and set location. And then you add it through its equation, molecule design line. Okay, it's 4 tracks, 5-track division. Then you can add all levels, graph calculation screen, interference of clockings. Clockings, division line centers of travel and position of point lines of graph calculations. Right? More identified, right? Doesn't look like much to you, but I know exactly what it is. Right? As long as it works for you through triangulation, you're good to go through algorithm location setting to your formulas. Right? It makes sense to you. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else. They have to come into their own settings of their own correlated setting attractions and high set location. Okay? So it's basically knowing what you're doing, right? So it doesn't matter how you design it. It doesn't matter how it looks, you know? You don't have to be a professional drawer. I can't draw. No, a lot of people can't draw, but you can draw. It's here. It's already set. So you don't need to draw. It's here already. It's a memory. It's already set. And it's so powerful that even if you know how to draw yourself, as a stick person, it doesn't matter because it's already here, an image, right? So you have to get in that position to the setting to understand what you're creating. You're creating an image, a set design in track locations. See, it doesn't matter how it turns anything in calculations and set in position to its operation. It doesn't matter how you position at track lines, but you're always going to see yourself through face recognition. Okay? As long as it works for you, and as long as you understand the algorithm, your binaries, your transistors, your resistors, your capacities, your volumes, your mass, your equations, you're good to go through travel, right? And so if this doesn't make any sense to you, it doesn't matter. It's a program for me. It's mine. It's mine. It's nothing to do with you, right? And that's what you guys are coming into. The avatar is coming in its own geometric operation of face recognition of space and time. All through coordinates, all through pi. Understand line calculation settings into your MODs, modifications, operation, and line conditions of delta. So you guys are coming into dx equals lines of delta. Okay. Or you got dx, line conditions. See, the thing is, we put things down, but we don't understand what it is. That's what we get confused about. You know, you can't travel through it. Like if I set up a formula equation line settings, it doesn't matter what I do because it's already done. But your position line track lines in set location line system and all travel positional point centers. So it's lines of 2. Got an A track over here, A track over here, A track over here. Sets lines of 3 weather patterns, calculation line center location higher self, avatar, and sim. See, I don't have to add anything to equation. I just put it what it is in track locations. Fibonacci line swirls, point lines of 2 atom line rotations, 3 track line divisions, molecule design lines, 3 track line condition settings, sets lines of communication of 2, in position of 2, and 2 track location. I already know what it is. It's not for you to understand. Okay, it's my travel and what I'm doing for me, right? For general, right? Me, myself, and I. Me, myself, and I. So, as long as you understand, this is all you're doing. It doesn't look much to anybody else, but I know what I'm doing. That's the difference. I understand the modifications. I understand the letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. I understand myself, the binary, and all of the transition resistors on my own system locations of compute set lines. The computation of you is to understand how to travel through these things, right? You just have to know exactly what you're doing. That's what people are trying to understand. They set up formulas, but they don't understand how to travel through it. You can't position of the 2 if the 2 doesn't understand you. You can't have positions of 3 if the 3 doesn't understand you. You can't have positions of 4 if 4 doesn't understand you. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, you don't understand what I'm talking about. That's what I'm saying. There's so many ways of looking at that setting locations. All levels of you inside. Once you go inside, you start to see the letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. It's not that hard to go inside. Then you recognize, oh my gosh, there's a 4-track line communication setting, a 4-line division location, a 3-line interference, a cerebral cortex lines of design. Boom. All through 4-4, right? 3-track division lines, a whole molecule design line, 2 atom line rotation center interference, high positional drive communication, point lines of traction. Oh, 2-line division line interference location of blue to blue comes in like how they send point lines of traction, cerebral cortex line design. Oh, right? Doesn't mean much to you, but it means everything to me. All right, all 3 set location. Okay. So it doesn't matter how you design it because it's already here. So you don't have to be a professional drawer. You don't even have to be a painter because we're all painters. We're all structure. We're all design. We're all schematics. We're pi. We're all founders. We're all builders. We're all our pioneers of ourselves. And that's where we're coming back to. Okay. So stop defeating the purpose and don't worry about structuring your settings location system because it comes here. It's already information. It's already done. So if the process of the communication of data is already done in track location line system, you have nothing to worry about in setting net travel communication. Okay, it doesn't matter how it's set. Okay, even if it doesn't look right, it doesn't matter. It matters to you because you know how to travel through lines. You know how to travel through center. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's wibbly wobbly because I know what I'm doing. It's structured in the mind. It doesn't matter if it doesn't make any sense. right? It's not for you to design. It's for me to understand, all right? So that's what you guys are coming into your avatars and line signals and set locations. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5-track division and set location, right? It's not for you to understand through pi. It's only for me to understand through all levels of solar set location setting and travels and solar sails and set location. Okay? All through infinity 8. All through infinity 8. All through infinity 7. All through, see, that's another thing too, is that you think because 8 is infinity. See, remember, you're getting a lot more now in cerebral. So this is where you have to understand the locations of binary and retraction. Remember, I told you you can change that in communication and coloration of lights. So 8 is no longer 8. 8 is now 7. 8 is now 4. Oh, 8 is now 3. Ah! What's going on with my chakras, General? So you guys got to get out of that program now. Because you're so used to the foundation, your chakras, right? Because 0 is not 0 anymore. Because it's traveling too fast. It's now mega location line setting. It's 1 million line screens, 6 correlation setting, and 24 billion centers. It's allocation of box frame. Hoo-ah! All right. So that's what you guys got to come out of. 0 is not 0. 1 is not 1. 2 is not 2. 3 is not 3. 4 is not 4. 5 is not 5. 6, 7, and 8 is not in that position anymore. Because you're in your avatar of your cerebral cortex lines in pi position of generation. Pac-Man, there's a ghost. Woohoo! So in that calculation line, you have to change that formula now, okay? Because you're a higher level of frequency line in position of center operation or universe location setting their travels now, right? So 8 is no longer 8. 7 is no longer 7. You can't define that now through your chakras anymore, okay? Because the mechanism lines of travel are changing, geometric lines of geographical system into your geometries. Your geometries are going faster in settings. So you have to understand the formula and your traffic flow, positional inventory communication setting, set up a ring graph communication stream interference location, travel position, operation location binaries. All right, so in that track locating line system, so 114 chakras, 114 is not 114 anymore. Okay, 110 is not 110 anymore. So you're going to higher level. 114 equals GOD, 110 equals GOD. So you're going to get a higher line communication and all those information screens. Okay, 68 is not 68 anymore, right? So you can't number it anymore because it's now into its algorithm. Okay, so 68 equals lines is a box. 68 is just a box now. 72, okay. All right, that's no line calculation setting in theta box in position of 2-track location of security anymore. 72 equals lines is a star line setting. Your mechanism in your body is changing acceleration screens, direct modification lines of pixelation graph calculations. So point lines attractions, your 114 chakras in your body is no longer chakras. Woo! They're algorithms. So I know you guys are very confused, but you can't be in a platform of communications into a settings and have yourself in a resource line communication to a source. So when you position your setting location, your system, this is not a box anymore. This is now a 3. Tethers correlations to the 3-track line conditions. Box equals 3, right? Box equals 3. So we're taking the box of 3 lines, right? But 3 is not a Fibonacci. No, it's a star line screen. Whoa. Okay. So alpha is not alpha anymore. Delta is not delta anymore. Theta is not theta anymore. Do you see what's going on through our location setting, your outdoor communication operation location of GOD? Your position of track lines are changing all lines of communications. And your frame communications of your body capacity location of center operator location, your earth perception location, your zones. Time zone locations, and time locations. 3-track line, original location operation. Now, no long calculation setting. No more alpha, no more delta, no more theta, right? Because it's changing. Okay, your alphabetical screen is changing too. Your metric meters and scales and balance cover these setting in seconds, minutes, and hours, and traffic communication of point center interference, position location of minds. So you have to really, yes, Morpheus, this is huge, right? So you can't represent your 114 chakras anymore. You can't represent your 1300 line kinesis personalized screen interference in your supracortex lines of your mind anymore, because it's not positional platform. The frequencies are changing, all right? So your algorithm is changing. Your voicing line grids are changing. Your eyes are changing. Your hair is changing. Everything's changing more and more now, right? So understanding that modification line screen high interference, you're coming into more levels of its information cycles. Directing lines to your information panels, high correlated sending traffic lines to your system. Planets are not planets anymore. Solar system is not anymore. Your body capacitor is not a body capacitor anymore, because it's changing its design of schematics over pi in a face recognition. So we have to understand how this all works now. Crystal is not a crystal. Nope, not a crystal. When you see a crystal, it's not a crystal now. It's something else. But what is it? Through its frequency. That's what you understand. This is not a digital pad now. It's something else. This is not a phone. It's something else. So you're not looking at a dimensional wall anymore. It's something else. So what that's doing is trying to find the structure of you and design and where you are through modification, location, calibration, lights, and screen interference, location, and program. Directing modification setting is all about communicate. Yes, you have to let it go. Let go to the structures, right? You have to let go of the schematics now. Okay, so you're coming into higher lines, a higher communication setting into your avatar cerebros. Okay, you can no longer be in that setting. Okay, get out of that. Okay, you have to focus on these things now because the frequencies are changing, like communication settings of algorithms. You're coming into higher levels of traffic. You're coming to higher levels of inventory. And you have to really understand how to use that through modification, especially in the space modulation centers, especially when you come in your position, to location, to system, and travel. Okay, so you can't represent yourself anymore through chakras. They're not chakras anymore. You're in higher levels and atmosphere lines. And when you get into sim of space, things have changed. You get position lines of seconds, minutes, and hours, how it changes communication in your system and travel communication point centers. Standing here in position, I went through 50,000 face recognitions. Boom. 50,000 face recognitions of different colors. 50,000 face recognitions of different colors. So you tell me, how can I be a chakra system in position of guidance? There's no guidance anymore. There's no structure anymore. And that's what you're coming out of. You get out of structure of time. You get out of structure of position line, center, location, your locations, and set lines of high center interference. Okay? Timeless, shapeless, and formless. But your provision line cycles has to understand you through structure of design first. You've got to get out of the numbers now and get into higher line positions. That's why I got you guys in your solar sails. When you get in one provision line cycle, sets lines of 4, sets lines of 6, solar sail, sets position, 8 line connections. Boom. Right? So I use the 1, I use the 4, I use the 6, and I use the 8. That's the binary. 1, 4, 6, 8. Sets correlation settings of 1, sets locations into 1, 2, 3, 4, sets location of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and set locations of 8 infinity line cycles and set locations. Whatever I do makes sense. Does it make sense to you? You've got to get out of structure of connection settings. Your position to its location is going to higher line division, right? So when you're looking at a computer, it's not a computer anymore. It's something else. It's changed into something else. But what has it changed in through its perception? That's what you have to identify. Okay? You have to identify in all loves of you at all timelines all at once. That's the only way you can understand your settings and applications. Right? So you can no longer identify your chakra system. Okay? From 0 to 12. Because it's changed. Okay? All right. So there's so many ways of looking at this, but there's only one way is within. Right? So stop looking at a t-shirt and start to understand its formation and what it is, its existence. Because it's moving too fast. It changes too many colors, but it protects your system of face recognition. Okay? So getting in that set lines when you get out of the lines of 0 in position of 1, in position 3, in position of 6, in position of 8, that's right. It doesn't have to be in chronological order. And that's what it's trying to figure out in the set location of your mind lines and set location of your capacities, your body capacity line condition, your heart regeneration line condition, soul, indication of light. So we got 0, 1, 2, 3, 6, 8. This is in order. You see it out of order. You see the difference? You've got to get out of that order. You got to get out of 1. You You got to get it at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You got to get out of this order. You got to get out of this order and get into this. Right? Because the 8 goes line centers of 6, 6 location lines of 2, 2 lines of 3, 0 lines of 8, and position lines of 2 lines of 4, and 6 lines of high calculation lines of 7. Okay? This is what you got to get out of. This is what you got to come into. Okay? Complicated, right? So your body is changing and morphing into higher line conditions setting and cell generation screen locations. Understand that position of the tracker lines and understand location of your system. Now, what never changes is the foundations of you. But what is changing is everything inside you. It's trying to identify you now, right? So you have to give it time. What I mean by that is you have to understand how to create it through an algorithm so the binary understands the resistors to its capacity over its volume, so it knows exactly its singularity to create it to its system, to understand it to its position. Okay? This is space-time capacitor now, right? Body capacitor, space and time capacitor, right? So you're getting higher volumes, and it's really understanding when you're seeing through perception, you're going to start to see different levels of frequencies now on everything you look at. You're never going to see a cup because it's not a cup. It's something else because it's at a different frequency, right? So I want you to make it very well clear when you come into zeros and ones, it's not a 0 and 1 anymore. Okay, so nothing's in order anymore, but everything is in order, right? So that's what you guys are coming into. So understanding your massive equation is understand anything grounds when it comes in your crop circles. Balanced communication setting that travels, energetic dome screens, high center interference, cerebral cortex lines of design, platitude screen interference, high performance program, and 3-track communications, direct line calculation location grids, setting correlation setting of track lines and high setting positions, orb channels communication interference, high calculation line settings, and all line rotations of 6 to 9 location. Okay, all through design. So you're constantly moving, frame. So the numbers, letters, shapes, and symbols that you look at in position, location, and line conditions is constantly changing. Directing, redirecting. See, one is trying to understand one, going back and forth. Okay? That's what it's trying to understand. Once it understands that, the one understands, oh, I can turn it into a box. Hey, look at that. Now I can turn it into a star line condition. Oh, now I can turn it into an atom. Oh, there, look at that. Now I can turn it into a molecule. And the 3-track locations. That's what a one can do. So you got to surrender and let that go. The one has to come in its all formation of its own inventory, of its own algorithm, its own binary, its own intelligence, its own formation, its own operation system, its own coloration, its own light, its own space, its own time, its own planet system, right? So you're not in track location of planets anymore. You're not in track location of binaries anymore, okay? Because it's moved too fast. You've got to understand the structure now. You've got to get out of structure of chakras, okay? You've got to get out of structure of planets, okay? And so once you understand that, everything comes in fruition of light because everything is traveling too fast for you to understand through design locations. Once you understand what the numbers, letters, shapes are doing, and symbols, then you understand more levels of you through identification of face recognition. Right? It's setting the tone. It's really understanding the space and time, how fast it's going in the system. And it's always creating its own frame. It's creating its own story. And it's creating its own line condition setting to its own individual system, a set design. But it's never, ever in the same shape. It's never, ever in the same symbol, letter, or anything in that number locations. It's always, always, always changing. Okay? So out of structure now, out of the line condition sequence location of panels when it comes to your chakra system. Okay? So knowing exactly what you're coming into is knowing exactly more levels of modifications of the memory, right? Memory is line connections to your intelligence that puts you in a new line communication of its division line calculation setting to its delta heading, a direct location of its dimension of space and time. Okay? The new factors of you is coming in as memory. It's all calculated. How you can change frames and how you see and how you perceive in a direct signal when you're looking at something, because it's never going to be at the same frequency. So getting out how you see things gets you in a provision to your system to location where you are, instructions of your mind setting and conception. Okay? So, how's everybody doing so far? Okay. So the second line is communication line centers, 4 line tracks, 0 operation locations, 5 line divisions, 3 lines of metric meters, minutes, lines of pi, correlating setting high interference, 1 billion line cycles, high calculation of clocking. See? Seconds, minutes, and hours. So everything I say is making sense because I've already traveled through it, or I'm traveling through it now. There's a difference between reality and real time. All right. This is the process that we all understand how to use the mind. The conception is everything through its calculations, right? Especially when you're drawing things. It's important to understand that because you understand your imagery, your digitalize, your computerize, or anything calculation, your settings and travel communications, point centers, attraction. Right? So that's all it is. The letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols is trying to find its own inventory of its own binary. Okay? And you have to let that flow. You have to let that go. You can't see things through a phone because it's not a phone. You can't see things through a computer because it's not a computer. You can't see things through a digital pad because it's not a digital pad. You can't see things through a TV because it's not a TV. You can't see things through a car because it's not a car. And that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to change. If you don't allow it to change, it's not going to be able to change. And if it doesn't change, you don't change. So there's a lot of communications that you have to understand, especially when you get into higher levels of the three locations of the mind. That's but to higher levels of capacity, your system to massive volume. This accelerates your system into vast. Okay? Understanding the mass, understanding the vast, understanding the velocity, understanding the acceleration, understanding the Mach. Okay? It doesn't matter how many times you travel. It's about you understanding what you are connecting with. And what you see is everything in perception. How you look at it through its intelligence of its frequency, where it is in its own space and time. And how many times did it change? One changed into 40,000 line screens, right? 40,000 line screens. One just changed into 40,000 line screens. Now you have no idea what I just said, but number one changed 40,000 line screens, but it's not a number, is it? But you see it as one. It's not a one. It never is a one because the one's going too fast. So if it's going too fast, it's understanding its binary and set location of its system. Balance on everything to your transistors and resistors, put you in all levels of graph calculation of point lines of setting. Right? Everything's a graph of you. Right? So there's no more alpha, no more delta, there's no more theta, there's no more omega, zeta, zeta, gamma, or location of radiation. Okay? It's changing. It's changing its frequencies, it changes its energies. It's changing its settings, guys. It's coming back to what it is in its own formation, of its own system, of its own intelligence. You have to get balanced with that. Okay, you have to get out of everything that you're instruction of. Okay. The shifting anomalies of timeline sequence of time capacitors, time coordinates, and line communication or settings and understand your locking sequence is to understand you through all position of programs. All right. To know exactly how to see that is how you perceive that through your mind, through travel. Okay, but you have to start recognizing everything. It's not one color, it's all color. But right now it's not a color. One turned into a car. An apple turned into a peach. All right? So if you understand that process, then you understand more communication to its avatar, how it shifts its anomalies of space and time through its correlation of lights, through its modification setting, a space capacitor, a set design, because the schematics are changing. Okay, inside of you. The graphing system is changing inside. What I mean is changing, it's coming back to who you are. Okay? But you have to recognize that. You have to recognize everything that you are seeing is changing. Okay? It has to change because it's trying to find the balance with you. And you're trying to find the balance with everything around you. That's the existence of everything, of its awareness of consciousness. But you can't platitude in one position, one color, knowing that it's just one color or one space, one time, or one travel. Okay? You have to really understand the collaboration to its energy that transfers anything in teleportation streamline and anything in calculation to its setting the travel communications. Set and design. Okay? Now, in position locations, does it really matter what order I'm in? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? No. right? Does it have to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Does it have to be 1, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, 4? No, this is 3, this is 2, this is 1, this is 4, this is 3. It doesn't matter to you, but it matters to me, right? It's all in order. Everything's in balance, right? So you have to understand the coloration of space and time to coordinates, or the barcodes, location setting, clocking, center interference, electrical line communication, and fusion location lines, clock line communication change. Directing lines of panels, electrical line and rotation center to travel communication of panel coordination setting, metal face travel lines, panel line position location high setting. Metric meters, scales, bounds, position location setting, line interference. 3/4 of design lines, past, present, future. Center correlation line condition of the moon, the position of the moon. This is no longer the moon. This is the sun. This is the moon. You see what I'm doing? I'm changing things up. So when you change things up, you have to understand that it can be anything at once because you're that. You're coming back to your design, so is the intelligence of itself. See, that's how you connect it to everything. Then you realize, oh my gosh, so this is not my index finger, like condition setting. This is something else. So I could turn this into my pinky. Now it's my thumb. But you see it as this. I see it as something else. See, this is about understanding where you can come into form, deform, fragmentation lines, defragmentation inference, change the correlation lines, track line communication height, inference substitution programs, direct modification line screen location setting. It's not line communication of 1 + 1 anymore. Okay? 1 is never 1. Okay? So once you understand that, and then you understand all levels of view, all volumes of view, all mass of view, acceleration and Mach, you get a better understanding when you're looking at things to really understand that in set locations. Okay? So you can set position lines of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 10, 11 lines set location of 12, 12 position of 1, 1 line center interference, default channels, communication lines of emblem, line rotation capacity, capacity over line triangulation type position barcode, direct modification signals, direct modification center interference, setting set lines communications back in balance. Now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See? Change. It's about changing it up, changing the flux, change the color, change the light, change the spectrum, right? Once you understand the modification of view through GOD, you can morph into anything in triangulation. The power direction of time sequence is all calculated modified. Now, your line calculation setting, you focus on this, okay? You're never going to see anything, right? So don't look at my hand. Look at me. Don't look at my hand. Look at me. Now, you're going to see 4, right? Then you're going to see 8, right? Now you're going to see 12. Now you're going to see 16. Now you're going to see 24. You're going to see 24 fingers. Where's it all coming from? Me inside, right? So you never look here. Always look beyond. Don't look here. Look beyond, right? So always look at where you're going, right? You're already there. I'm here, not here. Not here. Don't look here. Look here, okay? Then you start to see the space. Then you start to see the time. Now, in position, it's trying to extend the focus, right? But it's an illusion, right? See, it's an illusion. See? It's an illusion. It's an illusion. But it comes together. Once it comes together, it morphs into anything at your applications. Okay? Right? That's what it's doing. It's trying to find its formation. It's trying to find its all-line communication setting. It's trying to find all communication to its system, arbitrary location setting, and travel. All at once. Okay? All right? So, no more focus on counting 1, 2, 3, all the line to 12, because it's not in order anymore. You've got to find the position of its order. Okay? Now, getting the track line provision of cycles is really to understand how to direct that line condition to its frequency of its program. It's the analytical line condition setting into analyzing communication interference at position your recycle location setting or psychosis, how to use the alphabetical line creating screen line high adaptation line condition to its position of program locations. Now, directing all communicate to its position, all levels of view through operation. Okay? So it doesn't matter how many times you count. Let's see, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 20 million, 47 line connection setting interference, travel position point lines attractions, 1 line division, center correlations and attractions. Okay? Sending travel lines, see the position location, see that? See? See? See cross-line signal? Everything is an image through light. Everything is an image through all communication, light, shades, and shadows. The more you start identifying your system, the more you see the intelligence. See? See the eyes? Variation timeline, sequence location of power, change communication, star line links, position locations, measure line connection setting, direct line communication of formation lines, screen location, change communication light signatures, balance, correlation, setting attractions, box location, right? So it's pretty amazing how fast we can change that, right? So the more you get out of the chakra system, the more you understand your avatar of the cerebral cortex of design. It's just higher levels of the mind. So you're just coming into online communication to its inventory. So it has to recognize its 24, 48, 72, and 144 platforms of letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, where it can basically change its position in space and time in seconds, minutes, and hours, guys. Okay? So I want you to really understand that. Pay attention to that, because that's what's happening to you now. And that's how you're going to see through perception. Your body is morphing to higher lines of communications now in all applications. So the foundation of you is now changed. It's just trying to find the structure without no structure. Okay? Understand discipline without no discipline, because it's already there. Okay? Getting in position of levels and how you see yourself in positive and how you see yourself in light. Sets locations into dark and location line conditions of light, right? So there is no positive and there is no negative. There's no nothing and nothing, but it's all there in the setting. So it's there when you need it. So the track by vision lines is trying to understand the line conditions to your settings. Really understand how to see yourself in all track locations, right? How to connect with the line conditions to your watch, or how to understand position locations, everything that you touch in your information screen lines. It directs to signal locations. Each line taps its signals in a different frequency. 1 million line screens, 45 billion line center interference, modification screen line adaptation of center correlation, direct lines and modification lines of finger point line traction, and 1 line rotation. You have no idea what I just finished talking about, but I traveled through it just by touching my fingers, right? So it's knowing exactly where your fingers are in its own setting, of its own binary, of its own system, has its own mindset. Yes, each finger has its own mindset, guys. Hello, right? So every time you're communicating, you're setting this position of traction, right? Every time you're communicating, you're setting position, location, attraction. Okay? So I don't have to look. It's here already, right? It's already set in its image. And that's where we're coming into, is the image itself, the detail of its image itself. The travel mechanism, line connections, all levels of itself. To really understand how to defy things, to understand how to see things through its correlation of light, and understanding this travel mechanism location settings of your data, your uplinks, your downloads, your upgradings, your uploading systems. To see it here now, right? Because you're all coming back to that set of locations. You don't even have to be a position of a painter, because you are a painter in the mind. Right? Some people find that foundation. Some people are good at this, and some people are good at that, right? So you're never bad at anything, are you? That doesn't exist, right? So that's a program that you also have to get out of, because there's no right or wrong in anything in set locations. I want to make that very well clear with everybody, because the frequencies are changing too quick, too fast. So it doesn't have time to create anything of its anomalies to set up line communication to its emotional line system. Because it does have a correlation setting track lines, and you balance these things in set locations, you're good to go. But if you don't balance your system, emotional line connection setting, you're setting up line communication system, it's a paradox. That changes everything through your polarities and your paradigms and set location of your systems, or your pulsars, or any calculation of your system. Because everything that you do through its imagery and line incentives changes everything through the computer operates location, your settings, and travel. Okay? That's what we have to understand, how to balance this all out. Balancing all this out puts our line communications at what we're doing through mind conception, our travels. This high calculates the modification system at all levels of travel mitigations. High calculations. Do you understand how powerful your fingers are and how you come into geometry settings of different travel communications? Looking through design, all through light. See the light there? See what I created? See that? See that? Isn't that amazing? Right? So 6 planets of lights in set location. Set lines of highest center interference. This is position line calculation setting. This is Pluto and set design, right? So watch, change it again, right? 4 signature screens of set location in position lines of 0 correlation setting attractions. Calculation modification screen interference and trial position its operation. 2 track line provision. 3 calculation of point line centers of attraction. 1, 2, 3. See how I move back and forth? All right? Communication. See? Everything is communication, people. Okay? So have fun with it. That's what it's all about. Everything's changing so quick and so fast, so it doesn't have time. It doesn't have time to have one binary line setting location, a voice line setting, because you'd be repeating your same patterns and you'd be repeating the same voice over and over and over and over. So it's like a record player just going. It's in its same tone, same modem, same line connection, same Wi-Fi, same satellite, same division, same image. No, everything is going too fast now. So if it's going too fast, it's constantly moving different lights of communication setting and travels. And you have to understand its correlation setting, attractions, and position location of its operation system, and travel what it's doing through location of light calculation setting and point line center interference. So once you understand how to balance out that line communication of its own space and time calculation light system, it shows you what it is through its space recognition. Okay? So, hope everybody had fun. Getting a little bit more understanding now how to use this remote through the avatar line condition to its setting that travels. Get you levels and more communication to its balance. All right. See you in 5.